Hi, everybody. Thank you again for joining us. My name is John Dupre, and I am one of the founders of Revel. And we have been doing this series where we've been talking to expert designers about integrating these larger ticket items like flooring into your business and some of the best tips and tricks on the way to do that. And so today, I've been really excited about this one because we have with us one of my favorite people. You probably know her because everyone knows her. And if you don't know her, shame on you. You're going to get to know her. Wendy Woloshchuk from Massachusetts. Wendy, thank you so much for joining us. Where in Massachusetts are you again?
I am in Munson, Massachusetts, which is Western Mass, but not quite the Berkshires.
Gotcha. The fun part of Mass, if you will.
Okay.
I spent some time out there. I enjoy it. So thank you so much for doing this. I didn't say anything before when we were talking, but I love your office and I'm super jealous of it.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
I could use some help at my home cubicle.
Worse.
Yeah, just like a curtain.
I've seen much worse than that. So you're doing
I bet I could top it if I remove the curtain.
Well, maybe.
Right. But we want this to be a nice sort of educational forum and not reminiscent of a hostage video. So I guess we'll jump right into it here a little bit. Tell me a little bit about how you got to where you are. Like, how long have you been an interior designer? Have you always been in business for yourself? Did you start working with someone else? Or what was your journey to kind of get to where you are?
So I feel like it's a long story, but I'll try to keep it short.
I don't mind long stories.
So way back when I went to school for education to be a teacher, because my parents told me that going to design school was not a thing, not a real career. So I went to school. I was a preschool teacher for a little while. Then I had my kids and I stayed home with them. And we ended up building a house. And after we built our own house, I had a lot of people say to me, oh, you should go to design school. And I was thinking, I wanted to go to design school and I never did. But so I went back to school for design and I opened my own business 13 years ago because I didn't know that I should have gone and worked for somebody else. Nowadays, if somebody asks me, I would tell them you should go work for somebody else first, kind of learn the ropes a little bit. But I started my business. So that was 13 years ago. However, I had a little break in my business because my daughter was sick for a few years. She's okay now. When she left for college, 7 years ago is when I really kicked my design business into gear. So
wow,
technically 13, but really 7 years.
So I feel like I have two follow-up questions to that.
Yeah.
So the first is we should do a separate, like maybe we'll host a show called Bad Advice Our Parents Gave Us. And I feel like we could just have a whole rolling list. And very much looking forward to giving bad advice to my kids one day.
My kids would probably tell you that I gave the bad advice about things too.
So without going into business, we're working for somebody first, but still going to design school. Your experience as a preschool teacher help you with some of the client management?
Maybe a little bit. I think it helped me. It's a creative job, right? Being a preschool teacher is creative. So those are both creative. So we'll go there, but not the business aspect of owning my own interior design business for sure. And I would hope that my clients do not act like preschoolers. So
now that's I've heard the complaint from designers in the past that they've had that preschool client.
There's always one or two. Yes.
That they want these specific blocks on Wayfair, and do they fit into your design? And I'm not saying that things on Wayfair are somehow bad, but I do know. So that's something I know I want to talk a little bit about because I know you've had that experience kind of with clients. Maybe we'll just go right kind of there. So I guess one of the common pain points for a lot of designers is sort of that client control. And you seem like, I know you've struggled, or not struggled necessarily, but I know you've had experience with some of those clients that are absolutely determined to go in maybe a different direction. How do you normally navigate that? Like, I know you can't win them all, but at the same time, what it seems like it's a real big pain point for designers, and you seem to do a really good job with it. How do you navigate that?
I think that when it comes to contractors or clients or anybody, I think they want their life made easier and to save time. So I think if you're selling flooring or something that's a big ticket, and I think you have to explain to them the benefits as best you can. Explain to them why you're choosing a certain product and why they should go with it, and your experience with it. And if you are explaining that to them the best that you can, and they still decide to go with another product, then that's their choice. I mean, I will explain to them till I'm blue in the face that I have, years of experience with this product. That's why I chose it. And I will explain to them that I'm not going to back up or have any type of a guarantee if they choose some other product. That's completely on them. And that's all you can really do. You have to build up that trust with them and try to explain to them the benefits. And if you've done that and they choose something else, then I had a client that did that. I specified a floor for them, and they ended up going with a really inexpensive, I don't want to say junk, but junk floor.
I
And
remember, I remember the pictures.
yeah, it doesn't. I sent you pictures of it, but it it doesn't look as good. And probably in a year or two, they're going to wish that they went with the better one. But like you said, you can't win them all.
No, and I think that that mentality is important too, right? Because a lot of times I think when it feels like, oh, well, somehow like I failed or I'm not doing this right or whatever. And sometimes you just have that
Yep.
client that is going to be insistent, and I know with flooring too, that you went well above and beyond on that one. And in some people, it's tough, because obviously when a designer approaches these things, it's a much more holistic approach. And it is a little bit of, look, I'm looking out for you, even if you don't see it right away. And this is a long-term decision, and you're making it based on short-term circumstances, that kind of thing. We see it from time to time because we know we're not the most Revel Woods, like we're not the most inexpensive thing out there. I mean, we don't position ourselves that way, and we probably never will be. We've got stuff in different budget range, but
You don't want to be cheap. I mean, I
no.
tell my clients that I don't sell the cheapest product. I will sell you the best product for you.
Well, and that is what I'm sure they love about you. It is definitely what we love about you. You are definitely very good when it comes with that. So, with your business, let me back up a little bit. You've been doing sort of larger ticket items, flooring, tile. A lot of designers say, "Look, I don't do that. I let my contractor handle that." When did you've been doing it for a while though? What made you decide to jump into that? Did you do that when you started 13 years ago, or did you say, "Hey, there's some money here"? Like, how did you arrive there?
That's exactly it. I realized I was leaving money on the table. So you can't, at least I can. I want to make a living. I don't want to, it's not a hobby for me. It is a business. And when I started my business, I mean, I didn't even know about trade accounts. I didn't know about trade accounts for furniture. I didn't know, I was buying retail Pottery Barn getting 10% off. I had no idea. So I when I started to learn about those things and go to market and start to sell furniture and custom furniture and tile and wood flooring, then it's, money that you can be making. And if you're not selling those items, then you are leaving a lot of money on the table.
Yeah, no, that's definitely been something we've been pushing for a while. And we know why, designers have had a hard time with that. A lot of times it depends on, especially with larger ticket items, it depends on whether you've got somebody in your region that is willing to work with you, and
Right.
how they're willing to work with you. And I know you've had a lot of luck with your local supplier,
Mhm.
which is good. And really, really flattering to me that you've chosen to still work with us, even though you've had that. So we must be doing something right somewhere.
Yes.
So I guess with that, a lot of designers, when they say, "Okay, I hear you, I'm leaving money on the table," How do I get into this? Whenever I've tried, I have, my installer or the local supplier that I would go in and try to work with basically pushes me out of the way. So how did you overcome that?
I think a lot of that is having a good relationship with your contractor. So, I mean, you need to find contractors to work with that I I'll be honest, I went through a couple of contractors, you know. I had somebody that I worked with and they weren't open to, installing things the way that I wanted them installed or installing products that I was specifying. So I finally, a few years ago, landed on a contractor that is easy to work with, that is open to any suggestion that I make, and is willing to do what I ask of him, or tell me why it won't work, or tell me, and figure out a solution. So I think it's the relationship with your contractors.
Now, I gotta believe you provide a lot of that value back to him too, though. It's not just like, how do I find someone who suits what I need, right? Because I'm thinking if I'm your contractor, having someone like you come forward and say, "Hey, look, I've got this complete picture. I'm sourcing quality materials. You're not going to have to fight with this." There are a lot of contractors. I know flooring contractors specifically. There is an army of them across the country that don't want to deal with, do I, which of the 50 shades of gray is going to go in? Okay, well, it doesn't like this one, it's too blue. It doesn't like this one, it's too brown. I just want to put the floor in. I don't want to deal with this. So to work with, and we've actually gotten calls from contractors around the country because they know we're working directly with designers who said, how do I get in on that? Can you pair me with a designer who, they'll have everything picked out. We'll have it all set. I know what I'm good at. I'm a really good installer, and that's what I want to do. And I think sometimes, a lot of times with designers, when you're thinking I'm going to start sourcing something like flooring, you'll go to a place that has a showroom that has their own installers, and then the installers there are going to kind of push you out of the way because they are already selling the product.
Right.
So you did it the hard way and went and found someone by
Yep.
just going through contractors. I wish I knew you then, because our whole thing is we try really hard to find that person for you if you don't have them.
Right.
But we didn't have to do that for you. You already had
Oh.
someone. So, and
It's,
it worked out.
I seem to do things the hard way, but it worked out.
There's something to the hard way, though. I mean, if you can avoid it, great. But there's some sort of that experience of doing something the hard way that um, just seems like can be a little more lasting at times.
Yeah.
So I guess let me ask you this, because I know that's one of the concerns when you work with a contractor and they're working with materials they don't normally work with. Um, you you have worked with us on at
With
least a
Rosa.
project, and they've installed it. How did I haven't even asked you this before, so actually don't ever ask a question you don't know the answer to, which I'm disobeying right now. What was his take on that?
He loved it. He thought it was a great product. Yeah, easy to do. And yeah, but there was a little bit, actually, that particular contractor on that job was different than my usual contractor,
Oh,
but
okay.
he was also a great contractor and easy to work with. So he, at first he was like, what is the product going to be? And asking questions, because I think contractors like to install what they've installed before because they know it and it's easier. So you have to give them a little nudge into something new, but he loved the product. So it was easy afterwards. He's like, yep, great, no problem. So
It,
hopefully he calls you to get the product as well.
I look forward to that.
Yeah.
But that was something that's always been really important to us, because we know, I mean, my father was an installer when I was growing up. So I worked with him, summer jobs. Like we've been there. We know these people, the flooring contractors are our people. We know them and we know what their pain points are. And a big one is when someone else is sourcing the product, what am I getting myself into? Am I going to have to fight with this? Is it going to be some, garbage wood that the client went and found somewhere for cheap?
Yep.
And then if it comes out poorly, it's going to be the buck always stops with the contractor. If it's installed incorrectly, or even if it was a defective product
Mm-hmm.
and the contractor installed it, like it wasn't shown to be, if it was shown to be defective out of the box and the contractor installed it, legally that's considered accepted. So it
Yep.
makes sense whenever, as a designer, if you're seeing that contractor pushback, this is just where they're coming from. And
Yep.
we know that. So whenever we're working with someone, especially for the first time, and you'd experience this and want to know, what is this, right? Like, we don't get, what do you mean? What, how dare you question us? No, we get it. We know that this is, there's a lot at stake for the contractor when the designer is sourcing something. And if you're picking something that isn't good, it's going to sour the relationship. And, you know, the contractor, he's the one, if that, the garbage wood gets installed improperly, or is accepted or just fails, he's the one that gets sued over it.
Right.
Um,
And a lot of the cheaper wood, like the one that got installed on that other project, was, I mean, it took the installer hours and hours and hours of time to pick through the pieces and try to find certain pieces that could fit here and could fit there and would look good. And it was not the case. Not to be a Revel Woods advertisement, but that was not the case with you. It
no, I
just
appreciate it.
laid it out.
We
So,
work really, really hard on with our suppliers to make sure that's the case. And that's a piece that a lot of people, when they haven't sourced flooring or haven't installed
mm,
flooring, don't necessarily know is exact. And I love that you said that,
yeah,
because that is a thing that people don't get when they say, well, this oak is $2 a square foot and this looks the same on the picture and it's $7 a square foot. What's the difference? And you're right, that labor cost is a big one. And the contractor saying, like, what is this? You know what? Don't ever source this again. Or, you know, in fact, better yet, don't call me again. Because he's got 2 days or whatever budgeted for the install, and now it's taken him 4. So he's
yep.
out 2 more days. He's charging by the square foot, not the day. So he's losing money.
Yep.
And then you're right. What they call that, what you just said when they're picking through those pieces, is grading on site, right? Where the wood is graded. This is a character grade or cleaner grade,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, right? And the contractor then always has to do a little of that when they're installing. Like, a good installer is going to know, don't put that little short piece in the middle of the doorway, which we've seen some do. That goes in the closet or whatever, right? Like, you have to be aware when you're laying it out that there's a look to it that you're going for.
Right.
But when you're on site and it's just every other or every third piece is not usable,
Right.
he's now grading this on site. That takes a lot more time. You have so much more waste.
Yep.
It really is a big deal. So I'm glad you said it, because I know working with contractors, understanding their pain points, you know, and why you and explaining that to the client, you know,
Mm-hmm.
this is why we work with quality materials, because it will bite you.
Yep.
And that's not just with wood flooring. That's, I'm sure, with
Anything.
everything you
Yeah.
source.
And again, you have to explain to the contractor too how, I have to explain how me choosing the product and me specifying the product is making his life easier.
Right.
So it's the same as with a client. I mean, the contractor wants to know that you're going to save him time, save him aggravation. You're not there to make his life harder. You're there to make his life easier.
Yeah. And there are a lot of if a contractor doesn't appreciate that, there are a lot out there that
Yep.
do. Trust me. We
Yep.
know them. I will say on that too, sometimes designer will be brought in later on a project. Has that ever happened to you, where the
Yep.
contractor's kind of already picked? Is there a strategy there, or do you just ride that out?
So I did a house like that last year. They already had their contractors and they brought me in to do just the furniture and decor, but they were still in the process of building. So there were times when they would say to me, you know, is this normal? Is this okay? Or referring to the contractor's work. And
Oh,
so they do put you in a little bit of a sticky situation. But again, I met with the contractor and I said, listen, I am here to make your life easier. You're not going to be waiting for their paint colors. You're not going to be waiting for their decisions. We can meet, I can give you all of these decisions and make your life easier. So
well, did they were receptive to that?
yes. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I mean, as long as I think that contractors have that same thought about interior designers that a lot of people did way back then. We're going to clip clop in our high heels and try to make everything a real pain in the neck for them. But if you can, again, I keep saying it, but if you can explain to them how you're going to make their job easier, then they will be all for it. But then you have to actually do it, and you have to actually follow through and make it easier for them, and not, you know, be a pain in the neck about it. You have to have a little bit of knowledge about it too. You can't be asking them to do things that aren't, you know, cost effective and that aren't possible to do. But yeah.
Right. Like, my favorite is whenever anyone asks for something that are two diametrically opposed things. And it's like, I need this to be um, really gray, but also perfectly brown.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, or I need you to install, can you just, or I think sometimes you see this too, like, I mean, a basic understanding, you don't need to know, you don't need to be a certified
Right.
flooring installer, but knowing that, something basic like, okay, well, if I ask them to install a herringbone or something, right? Like what goes into that? And spoiler alert, a lot, like a real lot. Like
Yes.
you have to, if he's going to make it himself, forget it. If he's not going to make it himself, the material has to be ordered in a specific, or just, it's like that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know we haven't had any designers that work with us say it's anything like that specifically, but it is, I do know that you're right. That's a really great point. Just knowing, okay, if I'm going to ask him to do something, or even if you don't know, maybe even coming at it from would something like this be possible? And if they
Right.
say, no, that's crazy. Okay, that's crazy. We'll find
Yeah.
something else. All right. I didn't
I
know.
asked if you were talking to my contractor, he would tell you that I say that often. I'll say, do you think we could do this? Will that work? And he's really good. Like I said, we built that relationship. So he's really good at saying, and not in front of clients, he'll say, Wendy, I don't know if that's going to work.
But you
So
don't ask him in front of the clients, right?
correct.
So
Correct.
that's a really good, tip too, to develop that rapport and know that you might not know everything that he does. And to know that don't put yourself in a situation where he has to contradict you publicly, and don't contradict him publicly. Well,
Right.
we're going to do it like this or what, and you're right. That's really important for that relationship building.
Yeah.
And right. But now you've worked with these guys for a while. I imagine because you've been successful, they always take your call, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. I mean, it's hard right now. Contractors are super busy right now, and believe it or not, but they're super busy.
We
People
see
are
it.
doing a lot of renovating. So if I will say to a client when we are in the initial phase or at a consultation, I'll say, I have contractors that I've worked with for years. I trust them. They do good work. They take my call. They show up when they're supposed to show up. They work cleanly. They take their trash with them. All of those things.
That's one
Yeah,
you don't even think about, but
I
it's
know.
so big.
Yeah. Yeah. So all of those things, because that's part of the details, which is my business experience. That's part of that.
Wow.
So it's
It,
a way to have it's a way of selling my business to clients as well, saying that we have all that backing us up.
so that actually kind of leads me to another great question. So because you have this full package, has that, I know obviously it's led to a more profitable business for you because that's a given,
Right.
but has it given you an advantage from either a marketing or client standpoint where whether it's client refer, I know a lot, I mean, actually, I don't know this. I'm guessing that a lot of your business is referral based, but
Yeah.
because most smart people's businesses are referral based when they've been at it for more than 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And, but has that, the fact that you can incorporate these large ticket items, that you're a one-stop shop, that you're doing all this, these people, has that actually led to winning more bids or winning more clients? Have you seen an advantage from that?
Yeah. I think that when clients call you, they're already overwhelmed. So if you can provide everything, like you said, like a one-stop shop, then that's easy. They don't need to be calling plumbers and calling electricians and calling flooring installers and trying to find a contractor they can trust. They already have all of that. So I just come in, done. They don't have to think about it anymore. But I mean, I live in a very small town. I think I'm the only. There used to be one other decorator, but I think I'm the only interior designer in the town that I live in. There are interior designers in the surrounding town, so I'm not usually going up against other designers, but I am going with people. I'm trying to get the work from clients who have never worked with a designer before, so they don't know what the benefits are of it. And now my dog's going to bark. Sorry.
It's
But
okay. I
um,
have the
yeah.
overly friendly mailman that rings the doorbell if he knows I'm home.
My driveway's a mile long, so there won't be any mailman. But
Oh yeah, no, my God, he just drives right up. My driveway's not a mile long though. I have a very modest driveway. My very modest home with my very modest in-home cubicle. But we're now in the sidebar. We are now in a situation where I'm able to go back to the office, and we are moving locations. We'll be moved in a month. So hopefully the next one of these that we do, I'll be in my new office. So I'm super stoked about that.
Good.
But yeah, so to get back on topic,
Yes. Sorry.
so it's good to know. Oh, I did it. It's good to know, I think, that this ability to sort of incorporate these into your business really does. I mean, it does put you at an advantage over,
Mhm.
again, not just other designers who are not doing this, but also in that value proposition of why you should work with a designer in the first place, right? It feels like your service has become so much more essential than
Yeah.
what somebody just immediately thinking, well, I got an app on my phone and I can do this myself or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
No.
And I think if it's like, oh, your app on your phone is not going to curate all these materials, it's not going to curate the contractors, it's not going to curate the install, it's not going to manage the project, it's not going to get you a tighter delivery window or whatever. I mean, I know we were
Yeah.
talking about this offline. I'll let you tell that story. When you did that project with us and we'd had the flooring delivered, I mean, ultimately it worked out, right? But like, what happened?
Yes. So the contractor was there, and I wasn't there when the Revel Woods was being delivered because the contractor was going to be there to accept the delivery. And he, like everybody else that's waiting for a delivery, wanted, a 15-minute time frame instead of a 2-hour time frame. So I was trying to get him a little bit more specific time frame. So I just emailed you. Which I knew you were on vacation, so I didn't want to email you, but
Like I said,
sometimes
it was fine. I was at a pool or a beachside bar waiting for my table. This was back when you were allowed to go places,
yeah,
back in February.
yeah, it was
And,
snowing here.
yeah, but I had my phone in my hand already, so it was super easy. But
Yeah, so I just emailed you, and you got in touch with the driver and found out where he was, and I was able to tell the contractor, and it was done, easy.
uh,
So I look for companies, and again, I'm not trying to sell you Revel Woods, but I look for companies that have good customer service. So, I mean, if you have the greatest product on earth and I can't get in touch with you to have a question answered, then I'm not going to end up working with you. It has to, especially when it's a new way of doing things, like Revel Woods is a little bit. It's a new way for me to do things. So I had questions that I needed to have answered. So the customer
well,
service is key.
we were happy to do that. Freight is always a weird thing because we don't deliver it ourselves. I don't own a freight
Right.
company. I have no
Yep.
interest in owning a freight company, but
No.
but we do try to build our relationships with our logistics coordinators. So should you be in a situation, and I wish every delivery went perfectly smoothly,
Yeah.
they don't. But from our perspective, the least we can do is everything we can do.
Right.
So in that case, yours was easy. I just needed to reach out to our guy who has the numbers for all the terminals, and he got in touch with the terminal, and they got in touch with the driver, and he was able to get back to me. I think
Yep.
we had that handled in
And
probably 3 minutes, give or
yeah.
take. So that
Yep.
was easy. That was easy. But we've had some before where they were at the load was out for delivery, and the driver called and said, I don't do this. We only deliver to commercial addresses. And it was like, we booked this with a residential address. I don't know why did you accept this? We said, this is what we need. You said, okay, it's going to be X amount of money. We said, okay, fine. And now you're calling me the day it's supposed to be delivered and saying, or calling the designer the day it was supposed to be delivered and saying, oh, we're just not going to do this. So we arranged for a white glove last mile delivery service to go to their terminal and pick it up and then deliver it and do all that. And we went backwards on the order, but that was the right thing to do. Right. And
Yep.
that's what, fortunately that didn't have to happen, with you. It was just a matter of getting a time from the guy. So that was fun, but it
Yep.
was, and hopefully, and I don't know, when I talk to designers and stuff, I'm really careful about just saying, oh yeah, it's going to be great. Everything's fine. It's always going to be perfect. Because, right, if you've also been in business for more than 20 minutes,
Yep.
things go sideways. But at the very least, what we try to do, and I'm glad that this worked for you,
Yep.
is not leave you hanging.
Right. Yeah. I mean, people are involved, so
Right.
human error.
And it
Things
does feel
happen.
like
But yeah, it was fine. It was
it
good.
does feel like since the COVID thing happened, the
Ugh.
human error thing went up for a while. Well, I think it's calmed down a little bit, but it seemed like everybody was at like maximum headspace
Yep.
for a
Yes.
little longer than I was hoping.
People are very sensitive right now, and yeah,
Yes,
doing our best here.
it's been a tough year for all of us. Tougher for some than others, admittedly, but it has
True.
been a tough
True.
it's been an interesting year. And well, I don't know when this will actually drop, but we are recording this in June. So who knows? Hurricane season's coming. That could be
Don't
fun.
say that. Don't say that.
We're in for some summer fun, I'm sure. So I think one of the hurdles we kind of hear with sourcing some of these larger items is, you need to have some kind of showroom. I mean, obviously you need to have samples of whatever you're selling, but do you need, if I wanted to incorporate this into my business, if I was a designer, and I'm not, if you could see behind this curtain, I'd prove it. But if you, do you need to invest in a full showroom and all of this in order to incorporate these types of items into your business?
I think so. As I said, I don't know if they heard that I live a mile in the woods. I don't live near I don't live near showrooms, really. I don't have a design center near me. The closest one is Boston at almost an hour and a half away. So no would be my answer, because I don't have one. So I had to figure out a way to do it without one. So I think it's crucial, like you said, to have samples. So if you have samples and a website that you can go on to show people, and the samples in hand, then I don't think you have to have a showroom for that.
So you were able, I mean, you've done it. You've been able to have something like hardwood flooring spec'd on a job without having a physical showroom to either take them to that's yours, or even take them to a separate showroom somewhere else.
Right.
Totally possible.
Yeah. But it's not an option for me. Having a showroom is not an option for me. So
No, I love that. And I think it's important, with the right partners. Flooring can be tough,
yeah.
and I think, you have a local supplier that you work with too, but those samples are always so much more unruly that without having a place that you kind of drive back and forth to and pick stuff out, you got to return those samples, or it's tough to mail them because they're huge, right? So it's like $40 just to mail
Yeah.
you one.
Yeah.
But you can do it there. You don't need that necessarily. It's nice if you have it. And I'm
Right.
not certainly saying if you've got a local supplier or whatever, that's a bad way to do it, or it's an inferior way to do it. I know right now it's tougher because depending on where you are in the country, they may not be open, or you may not be able to get in there, or your client may not be comfortable going in there, or may not be comfortable with you going all over the place and then coming to their house. I don't, I mean, that's all situational, and hopefully that's a temporary thing. I don't want everyone to be scared for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's no fun.
I mean, I have a tile showroom that I can go to. That is the one that I have. But
I'd help you there, but I am not getting into tile. Don't know anything about it. That will be a disaster.
Right.
Staying in my lane. I do have some friends that have some tile companies, and they are very good. I can always make recommendations, but there's no money in it for me. That'd be me just being a dude.
Yeah.
No, well, I appreciate this, Wendy. Thank you. Last question. You're not obligated to do this, but if somebody had questions, reaching out to you about, hey, how do you handle XYZ situation? Are you okay if I share an email address for you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I
I've
also
had,
have a Facebook group that
oh,
helps.
please tell us how to join that.
It's, Design for Today Collaborative is the Facebook group, and I have that with two other designers, Debbie Daly and Marianne Cherico.
Oh, cool.
So we have our Facebook group for designers, and we'd love to have you in there.
So that's probably the better way to get a hold of you, is through the Facebook group. Okay,
Yep.
so let's do that. I'll put a link to the Facebook group in the notes on this, and if you want to get a hold of Wendy, I can tell you that if you have any questions for her, you do want to get a hold of her, because not only is she smart, but she is absolutely a riot to hang out with. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm so looking forward to hanging out with you in person again. What are your plans for the Fall High Point? Are you going to go? Or are you sitting this one out?
I'm booked for Fall High Point, but truthfully, I haven't decided yet, but I am booked to go. I'm hoping to go.
Okay.
We
Yeah,
got
we're in the
sales.
same boat. Maybe I'll take this. Maybe I'll use this as a place to announce that we actually have. We're going to be within a permanent showroom
Oh,
here.
awesome. Yeah.
We'll have more on that coming up,
Yeah.
but the flooring for that showroom is being shipped out next week. So,
That's
um,
exciting.
yeah, it's going to be, well, more on that later, but same boat, right? Like I'm planning on going to, if you want to hang out with us. I don't know. I don't even know if we're really allowed to have events there though. Like who knows, right? But we'll
Yeah.
see.
I'm hoping yes, because the
But
events are my favorite part.
I know mine too. It's why you go, right? I mean, at
Right.
least why I go, because I don't buy
Yeah.
furniture.
I mean, I like to see furniture too, but I like to see my friends and go to the events and learn things at panels and all of that good stuff too.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll just have to space the chairs out or something. But
Yeah.
we'll see. But stay tuned for us or to your Facebook page to learn more about that. Because if we are allowed to go and we're down there, we should definitely do something. Cool. Well, Wendy, thank you so much. This was so great. You are a gem in the community, so we're lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you next time.